Soviet disk detected. To play the Allied missions, please insert the Allied disk.
Hello everyone, I'm a Broken Robot. Being a Pokemon card fan in 2025 is hard to say the least. It's no secret that a combination of multiple factors has made Pokemon cards more expensive on the secondary market, harder to find at retail prices, and it's even rarer to find a good deal these days. If you ask any fair-weather fan, they'll blame scalpers and opportunistic resellers that think that they can pay off their kids' college one day with a pallet of Evolutions packs. Long-time collectors and creators within the fanbase might point fingers at shifts in the general community and hype culture making certain cards worth way more money than they really should be. And a loud minority of resellers, scalpers, and Pokemon investors claim that the Pokemon card company purposely releases their trading card game in a way that promotes artificial demand and scarcity. While it's not in my nature to take sides with a bunch of grown adults fighting over a children's card game, in this robot's opinion, they're all kind of right. A series of unaddressed issues that began to form in the late 2010s has wrought its ugly head within the Pokemon card community, and it's only hurting honest fans and players while empowering whales and scalpers. As a longtime collector of Pokemon cards, I feel like someone really needs to address all angles of the problems facing the Pokemon card community. But before we can discuss the tumultuous release of Prismatic Evolutions earlier this month, let's briefly discuss how we got here in the first place. If you don't know anything about Pokemon, you have either been frozen in carbonite for the last 25 years or you seriously need to get out more, my friend. Pokemon, otherwise known as Pocket Monsters, is the largest international property in the world, outpacing giants within the industry like LEGO and even Disney. Pokemon was created by Satoshi Tajiri, one of the 4 original founders. Satoshi was fascinated with the Nintendo Game Boy's ability to connect to other devices, which reminded him much of catching bugs and passing them around with his schoolyard pals as a child. After a relatively short development, Pokemon was released in February of 1996, and the franchise naturally blew up thanks to tie-in properties. The Game Boy title was popular, but a tie-in anime, trading card game, and manga series further added to what we now call Pokemania. In the latter half of 1998, when Pokemon became more widespread in the United States, much like Pokemania in Japan, a similar event happened, where Pokemon was everywhere for a few years. From 1998 through 2002, Pokemon clothing, action figures, toys, collectibles, and what we'll focus on for this video, trading cards, were impossible to find. If you even dig up old interviews from the 90s, you'll hear stories of shop owners not being able to order products fast enough. During the first wave of Pokemania, it was normal to hear stories of adult fans fighting over prized cards for their children, and there never being enough to go around for players and collectors alike. However, while the first wave of Pokemania mostly focused on the entire Pokemon property, the unofficial second wave of Pokemania, which started in 2019 and around 2020, had a far greater emphasis on the trading card game alone.
I like my cheese drippy, bruh.
During the height of the pandemic, a bizarre trend began to take place. Fueled by a combination of Americans being stuck at home and poorly regulated stimulus checks from the federal government being given out en masse, suddenly a lot of the poorest Americans had expendable income, and with rent and other bills being frozen during the height of lockdown, we saw people blowing their stimulus checks on all kinds of stupid things, from PS5s to cosmetic surgery. But what is a well-documented fact is the fact that many hobbies and collectible brands saw a major influx in sales during the pandemic, and Pokemon cards were a similar story to an insane degree. If you are a Pokemon fan from 2019 through 2020, you know firsthand how bad the climate was for honest collectors and players. Thanks to influencers like Jake Paul hyping up the dollar value of Pokemon cards, there was a sudden mad dash to attics and crawl spaces to track down childhood Pokemon collections. Everyone and their grandma suddenly wanted to find Pokemon cards from the 90s in hopes of flipping them for the big bucks. While most of these searches ended with speculative millionaires finding out their Pokemon collection from 20 years ago is worth dollars, many who still wanted to get in on the hype simply turned to modern sets, which is where the real problem started. Targets and Walmarts were stormed by investors and resellers looking to capitalize on the hype, who knew that sets like Celebrations and Brilliant Stars would resell for double on the secondary market. And for a short period, Pokemon cards became so cutthroat that Target temporarily stopped carrying them. It's unclear if printing and supply chain issues were the cause of this mass shortage across North America, but for a few years between 2020 through 2022, it was difficult to find certain card sets. And when restocks came at local game stores, you could expect to pay as much as 10 to 30% more than market value. Scalpers and resellers had turned off many fair-weather fans to the hobby, and those that played the actual card game and ran tournaments had issues sourcing common cards for fair prices, since every grandpa on Facebook Marketplace thought their dinged-up cards that their kids had forgotten about were worth a fortune, when in reality, most collectors know that bulk isn't worth more than 50 cents a card. Price gouging was a major issue and sadly has grown worse in recent waves of Pokemon hysteria.
Degenerates like you belong on a cross.
If you don't know what a scalper, reseller, or self-proclaimed Poke investor is, they are all pretty similar. To keep it simple, a scalper wants to buy up as many Pokemon products at release as possible, then turn around and sell them for a higher price when the stock eventually runs out in traditional stores. Scalpers are more focused on speed and the raw payoff of what they're flipping. Resellers and Poke investors are similar but a bit different than scalpers. Resellers play the long game, or will even work with a collective of other resellers in order to make a certain card have an inflated price or a sealed product cost way more than it really should. These basement-dwelling finance bros think that they can sit on a pallet of Pokemon cards and in 5 years it'll buy them a house. Poke investors are the same way but to an annoying degree. But first, let me ask you, what's better? Buying a pack of Pokemon and opening it to, enjoy the trading cards you just bought and paid for, or instead, placing it into a protective vacuum-sealed bag and placing it in a storage unit where it will sit for the next 20 years in hopes that one day it'll be worth a stupid amount of money. Unlike resellers that dabbled with singles and all varieties of sealed products, Poke investors are only interested in the big-ticket items that will appreciate. This has led to very mid products like the Pokemon TCG Classic Edition, which was already overpriced at MSRP, reselling for over $1,000 when it should have never costed more than, say, $100. Poke investors don't care if a set has cool cards in it, they only care if said cool cards are worth a lot of money to drive up the value of their sealed products. Many of these investors got into the game way too late to collect the expensive vintage and early 2000s era sealed products, so most buy up large quantities of sealed products from nowadays in hopes that one day they'll be worth a lot of money. It's an open secret that most Poke investors are just washed up resellers that couldn't hang in the Supreme, Hot Wheels, or sneaker market that has become very competitive in recent years. A lot of these guys see Pokemon cards as a potential hobby to exploit for big bucks, which only hurts the hobby in the long run. While all of this is technically illegal, and you could easily argue down in the comments that Pokemon collectors and players shouldn't get in the way of someone trying to make money, how would you feel if this happened to your personal hobby? That's right, think about it right now. Think about something that you might like to collect or enjoy, and imagine that a bunch of man-children suddenly interject into it and make it impossible to enjoy it for a reasonable price. In fact, just to reiterate how bad resellers and scalpers have gotten, let's go over some of the times in the past years that Pokemon card scalping has reached news headlines.
It's a child's card game. Please grow up.
Back in 2021, the Pokemon TCG had just turned 25 years old, and in order to celebrate, Pokemon did a collaboration with McDonald's that saw specialty 3-guard packs featuring the starter Pokemon from each generation in every Happy Meal, alongside an adorable Pikachu-themed Happy Meal box. It should have been a simple collaboration, but what McDonald's and the Pokemon Company didn't realize was the determination of scalpers and middle-aged adults to get their hands on a children's fast food meal. At the height of Pokemania 2.0, McDonald's was giving out exclusive cards that featured fan-favorite characters like Pikachu, Piplup, and Charmander. Some collectors did the reasonable thing, and took their family out for some Happy Meals and pocketed the card packs, while others opted to get one or maybe two of the promotional packs and just hope for the best. Now, the McDonald's and Pokemon collabs are famous for attracting new fans to the hobby, but this one had the complete opposite effect. Scalpers would buy Happy Meals by the dozens, and some opportunistic employees simply walked away with sealed boxes of packs and resold it online for a major payoff. When there were future McDonald's crossovers, the Pokemon Company responded by making their promotions have far less popular characters that took away most of the hype around these packs. But honestly, it's a crime that adults ruin what should have been some people's first introduction to Pokemon in the name of some nominal resale bucks.
I'll steal it! No one will ever know!
Now, if you thought only resellers and scalpers were predatory towards the hobby, you should see what the actual Pokemon Company employees will do to make a quick buck off fans. Back in 2022, photos surfaced online of boxes of hyper-rare Pokemon cards that sold for major money after a failed sale took place in Texas. The Texas-based TCG store was confused how the two individuals came into possession of such a large quantity of chase cards and the fact that they had so many duplicates of cards that went for hundreds of dollars, when the most avid Pokemon card collectors will only get a handful in a lifetime from ripping packs. The odd event was later reported to the Pokemon Card Company. Sources are unclear about what exactly happened next, but from what I could find on sites like Kotaku and The Gamer, the pair of Pokemon card sellers worked at a local Pokemon printing plant and had tampered with machinery in the pack filling process, setting aside hyper-rare cards like Rainbow Mew VMAX, Gengar VMAX Altart, and the infamous Umbreon VMAX Altart, which today sells for over $1,500. When the dust settled, the cards were returned to the Pokemon Card Company. The two workers were arrested and taken to court for intellectual property infringement and theft, and the entire Pokemon card fanbase was kinda left holding the bag. Sets like Evolving Skies and Fusion Strike were infamous for their poor pull rates, and multiple times throughout the Pokemon TCG history people have speculated about tampered pull rates. But for the first time, there was concrete proof that the hit rates for packs were artificially lowered by anywhere between a speculated 10 to 20% based on the thousands of cards taken out of circulation. Some online claimed that Pokemon would respond with reprints, but instead we got a lukewarm statement from the Pokemon Company and no further information about the fate of the stolen cards or the thieves. Many collectors that had spent a small fortune chasing hyper-rare cards felt cheated, and worst of all, the Pokemon Company didn't care that the pull rates were lowered, they only seemed to care that their intellectual property was infringed upon. If anyone has any further information about this story, feel free to drop your insights in the comments down below.
I don't think we're alike at all, Mr. White.
In 2024, the Gogh Museum, much like McDonald's, did a collaboration with the Pokemon Company that saw products like bags, postcards, and decor featuring Pokemon in a Van Gogh art style. These were honestly gorgeous and unique pieces of artwork we hadn't ever seen before. With the purchase of a Van Gogh piece of merch, you will receive an exclusive Pikachu with Gray Felt Hat card, which, while nice, honestly isn't worth the hype that it received. Nonetheless, much like with the McDonald's promotion packs, it wasn't long till people who knew that the free exclusive gift with purchase card would resell for hundreds of dollars on the open market. The day of the drop, fans were horrified to find that most products were sold out within minutes, and to add insult to injury, due to a shortage caused by people placing multiple orders to get multiple cards, even if you did place an order before things sold out, you weren't guaranteed the illustrious Pikachu with Gray Felt Hat card. If you had no luck online, you were probably even more unlucky to get one if you were one of the few that were able to attend the Van Gogh Museum. Videos surfaced online of people storming past the art exhibits just to reach the gift shop. Some online sources even claimed that the museum ran out of Pikachu cards within the first 3 hours. Online, these cards resold for hundreds of dollars, and even after the Pokemon Company announced a reprint of the Pikachu card, they never restocked the Van Gogh themed merch, forcing fans to purchase products that had been sitting in warehouses for months. Many online speculated that the Pokemon Company purposely did a reprint to sell underperforming products, but that can be neither confirmed or denied. But knowing the Pokemon Company, I wouldn't put it past them.
Did you jack up 26K on?
Pokemon cards.
The Pokemon Card Company that had been watching this boom in sales between 2020 through 2022 attempted to rectify this by overprinting future sets, which for a short period fixed the issues of constant empty shelves and outrageous prices on the secondary market for sealed products. For the first 3 sets of Scarlet and Violet, fans could find plentiful stock of products, and even when more popular sets like Paldean Fates and Paradox Rift released, you could still find restocks every now and then, which was a far cry from the weeks of empty shelves most collectors were used to. Scalpers and resellers were always an issue, but even when specialty sets like Twilight Masquerade were released, products could still be found on store shelves. However, never underestimate the power of hype and the fear of missing out. Prismatic Evolutions, which released just last week as of this video being made, is easily the most hyped set to release in the past 5 years. Much like sets like Evolving Skies and Cosmic Eclipse, Prismatic Evolutions had hyper-rare cards and included new reverse holo patterns that fans wanted to get their hands on. Additionally, Pokemon that haven't been seen in the TCG for decades would also make a reappearance. To say the hype was real would be an understatement. While scalping and reselling had become less of a problem, I can confidently claim that a solid 70 to 80% of all of the stock released with Prismatic Evolutions went into the hands of scalpers and resellers. Remember earlier how I mentioned the website was prone to bot orders? Well, the Pokemon Company is fully aware of this and does almost nothing to stop it. Maybe it's just because they're a different kind of company, but the Pokemon Company International has always held the belief of they don't care who they sell to as long as they're selling. This obviously causes problems when the virgin with too much free time on his hands tries to pre-order 100 Elite Trainer boxes to then flip them on eBay. Even when limits are implemented, much like with the Van Gogh controversy, making repeat orders easily gets around the block. With most of Prismatic Evolutions stock within the hands of resellers and investors and a reprint not coming until next month, prices have soared, with boxes of cards that normally cost around $50 now selling for up to $200 in some parts of the internet. And once again, market manipulation is being used to shoot the price of certain cards to the moon, making it unrealistic that collectors will ever be able to acquire one. Multiple Twitter and Reddit threads later revealed that there were multiple cases of local game stores canceling pre-orders in the name of selling their products for the inflated secondary market prices that happened after release. An even more sneaky tactic was Walmart, Target, and Best Buy employees choosing to buy up all of the stock before it hit shelves. What's even worse is the Umbreon EX card isn't even the best card in the set in terms of looks. Investment bros just think that because the Moonbreon from Evolving Skies is now worth a small fortune, this one should be as well. Luckily, the Pokemon Company has announced that there will be major reprints taking place, so time will tell if the outrageous secondary market prices are here to stay. I certainly hope that they're not. I think it's time that we address the elephant in the room. I'm not the first YouTuber to call out the Pokemon Company for obviously treating collectors like walking cash cows, or the last to call out scalpers and resellers for taking advantage of the hobby, but I think we need to address some of the wider trends in the community that is causing these unnecessary inflated prices. FOMO, or the fear of missing out, is a huge problem within the Pokemon card collecting hobby that's only gotten worse with time. As someone who didn't bother to camp out overnight for Prismatic Evolutions, even I was surprised to see middle-aged women, grandpas, and blue-collar workers picking over the remains of the Pokemon section when I did arrive at 9 AM. Adults and people who aren't even interested in the hobby only get involved when they hear about the hype. That's what caused the 2 waves of Pokemania in the first place. Thanks to the internet, new sets are announced often before they have even been announced officially by the Pokemon Company. On that same note, the internet has also made it easier for high-profile Pokemon influencers to contact distributors to get products early. The video of some soy jack dancing around in front of a wall of ETBs weeks before release really drummed up a sense of urgency in terms of sets like Prismatic Evolutions. It's important as a community to not let this get us up in arms. Much like with the earlier Scarlet and Violet sets, despite the regular hype train, products remained pretty available, and I have a suspicious feeling that the Pokemon Card Company will begin to continue printing to demand. We as collectors and players of the game need to appreciate common cards more and spend less time chasing the hyper rares. That will encourage resellers and scalpers to stop paying so much attention to the hobby. We need to stop ignoring beautiful full art cards just because they aren't valuable, and stop putting ugly cards on a pedestal just because some guy living in his mom's basement says so. If you ask any longtime Pokemon fan if things will get better, you'll never get the same answer twice. Across the Pokemon YouTube space, people are discussing the upcoming reprints of Prismatic Evolutions, the overhype for the Journey Together set releasing later this year, and the current state of overinflated single card prices. No one quite knows which way the wind will blow. I'd love to tell you guys that the Pokemon Company will shape up and prevent scalping, but that's honestly very unlikely. As long as a loud minority of Pokemon influencers rant and rave about the most expensive card in the set and how much money you can make from a single pack, there will always be an artificial demand for certain products and cards. It's not easy being a Pokemon card fan in 2025, but I have a feeling that, much with shoes, Hot Wheels, and NFTs, the grifters will move on and only the true players and collectors will remain. Much like with Pokemania in 1999, Pokemon became so popular thanks to a collection of different properties. The anime, the manga, and other forms of the franchise will always remain popular even if the TCG wanes in upcoming years. I personally don't foresee the TCG falling, but with the increase in prices, only time will tell. I personally, as an adult robot fan, have taken a bit of a step back from the hobby to allow the more younger generations to appreciate it as they truly should. But what do you guys think? Do you think these grievances around Pokemon card collecting is blown out of proportion, or not enough people are calling out scalpers and predatory influencers? But more than anything, I'm so happy to have each and every one of you in my audience, and thanks so much for watching this video to the end. You guys are truly what makes the show possible, and I live to entertain. If you like what you see, feel free to hit that like button. That way I know you guys want more content, and it helps me out personally in the YouTube algorithm. So hey, thanks a bunch. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Robot Factory today. We cover a wide variety of topics here on the show in the form of interesting video essays, covering topics like pop culture, philosophy, gaming, and much, much more, so there's always something for everyone here on the Broken Robot Show. I hope you all have a great day, make sure to catch them all and stay cool.